and welcome to Unmute, the podcast that seeks to raise the volume on the whispered conversations in our communities. My name is Angela Ifanaja, and with me are the Pivot Ladies, Yolande Robertson-Green.
Hello.
Natasha Latcham.
Hello.
And Raquel McKee.
Hi.
We also have with us today some guests whom I will introduce in a little while. But just to really recap for you on our last podcast. In the last podcast, we had heard from various voices in the Afro-Caribbean community. And we had asked them a question. And the question was, how would you respond if somebody said to you, all lives matter, not just Black lives? Now, we heard some responses that were quite passionate, very gracious in many ways, touching in many ways, and sometimes emotional. But there was a thread that ran through those responses. And it was essentially that, yes, of course, we recognize and do believe that all lives matter. However, the reason that we are highlighting Black Lives Matter at this point in time is because of the issues that we see globally. So we're shining a torchlight on that issue. Now, we are going to push forward in that conversation today with our guests, but just to make it clear that what we are dealing with here is the statement that Black Lives Matter rather than the movement, which we see as two separate things. So we're here discussing the statement Black Lives Matter. Now we have with us today Siobhan Brown. And Siobhan is a woman of Caribbean descent, married to a man from Northern Ireland. And we also have her son with us, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining us.
The only male.
Don't worry, he's got this, he's got this.
You're not even slightly intimidated.
Not at all. Now, we just really want to hear from you guys what you've been doing, Siobhan, over the last few weeks on Facebook. So first of all, just tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Where do you want me to start?
Wherever you want.
I moved to Northern Ireland in 1991. Seems like a long time ago. Well, it is a long time ago. So I came when the Troubles were still in full effect. And so I've seen the changes from Northern Ireland becoming predominantly white to becoming multicultural, and a very interesting process. I came here to work, so I'm an architect, and as you said, my husband he's Northern Irish, so he's a white Northern Irish man. And we got married here, had our kids here, so they're all Northern Irish. And I've just come to love the place. Yeah. Now it's a kind of love-hate relationship. And that's interesting for me, because I literally did come here and loved it, and then over time,
and now there's been a shift.
Over time, even before Black Lives Matters, I was starting to have issues,
right?
From a cultural perspective.
Okay. Let me just ask you to pause 1 second. And we're going to come back to that and pick up on that. I wonder, Aaron, do you want to just say hello?
Yeah. Obviously, I'm Siobhan's son, and I was brought up here in Northern Ireland.
Forget your
I don't want to say that.
Go ahead.
I was brought up in Northern Ireland, and I mean, I've always experienced racism, but just never as I've never really felt it, if you get me, because my generation is kind of just like people play it off as a joke, and and I used to take hard offense to it, but with the football and stuff, I kind of just didn't really recognize it anymore.
He's an amazing footballer.
And if we didn't even pick that up, his mom's an architect. So when we have a podcast about women in unique professions or careers, Siobhan.
That's right. Sorry, Aaron. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just never really took to it heavily, and it never really affected. I kind of just let it go over my head, and then I think the whole situation that we're in now just really made me it really hit me at home when I just felt like I needed to speak up about it. So
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to
Amazing.
that. Let me just quickly go to the pivot, ladies. Obviously, you had heard some of the stuff that our audience had been telling us in response to that question that we had asked them, and I just wondered if you could just say, you know, as you're listening to these conversations and things are evolving, what are you seeing as possible creative solutions? Yolanda, do you want to kick off first?
Yeah, I think supposedly today is gonna be exploring solutions. And for me, I don't have the answers. I don't believe that any one person has the answers. But I think that if we all work together and do our own little bit in our own little corner and find that niche, we can have a global solution. So for me, perhaps my solution is what we're doing right now. Perhaps bringing focused discussions within our community is a solution. Perhaps we can extend that to the lessons we teach our own children in our homes. So the list can go on and on. It doesn't have to be a big magic wand or a big solution from a structural level, because I am not a politician, but I can start in my own corner. And that's what we're doing here today, I suppose.
Absolutely. Natasha?
I think solutions can be found in, I guess, a number of ways. Personally, I know sometimes a person of color, black person, can feel the emotional labor of continuously having to try to educate persons about it, and after a while it would take a toll on you, on your mental health or your emotional health. But I think that if the person comes to you in a genuine way of wanting to learn something, that you can either direct them to resources, whether the literature, or if there's a video that explains it very well on YouTube, you can say, well, here, watch this, they can probably tell you better than I could, or something like that. But I think in your own little circle, whether it's your immediate family, friends, or something like that, you just have one-on-ones with them and try to explain to them, you know, what it feels like to be on this side of it. And just start in your own little way, and hopefully it will, you know, ripple out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks. And Raquel?
I would say that personally I have a number of possible means by which I can begin to outwork some solutions. Being a teacher, I have the opportunity to have conversations with children at primary school level where we can begin to unwrap some of the detail of what it means to be a black person in Northern Ireland, because that's where I teach. So, you know, being a black person in Northern Ireland, being a black person in the wider world even, because fortunately or unfortunately the issue goes wider than here, goes wider than the UK, you know, it's all across the world. So we've got the education outlet, but also because I am a performing artist, I also have that as a means that I can use to begin to engage with people and to begin to have some, especially since my poetry is social commentary, so you know, it gives me an opportunity to engage people in a bit more conversation and thought. Probably.
Sure, thank you. So Siobhan and Aaron, I'm going to come back to you now. I'd mentioned briefly earlier on that you've been having some interactions on social media. Just tell us, please, you know, kind of like what moved you to that and what you have been doing.
What moved me to it was, we were obviously in lockdown, and this whole issue of the way black people have been treated is not new.
Yeah.
And in the past I have been guilty of turning my mind away from it in order to not have to deal with it.
That's deep.
Yeah. No, it is deep, because when it came round this time, it crossed my mind again. This time I said I cannot. I cannot. Maybe I said I cannot because of where I am in my life now and the experiences I've had. Probably much more so because of the age my kids are, and it could have been them. And I suppose now in my life I am much more accountable. I've come to a place where I choose to be more accountable. I choose to be more honest about my my life and my experiences and my relationships. So it moved me to say something.
I like the fact that you're saying it's a choice. It really is a personal choice.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know everybody is choosing to do it different ways.
Absolutely.
I spoke to a friend of mine, and she had said to me, to be honest, I'm scared, Siobhan. I don't even want to address it. I said, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because you're being honest about where you are.
Yeah.
And there's been other people that have said, you know what, I've had so much stuff in my life that I can't do this.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But for me, I needed to say something. We were in lockdown, and social media was the only platform to be able to do that. So I took myself, just to make my own type of interactions with the things I was seeing. And what was interesting to me was my family. Each one of us were doing that individually within our own circles. Yeah. And there was times when we were all just did you hear what I'm doing? It was really,
listen to this one.
Yeah, it was really like that. And one son was like, I can't believe and we were hardly getting any of our
anything done,
any
other
work
than
done.
Yes.
And what really struck me was how much my sons were engaged with it. And so why we took to Facebook as a family was because we were all engaged in the conversation. And we were all like-minded in our views. And so I just said to the guys, look, what about we just do this as a family, because it is a black-white kind of issue, and that's what we are. And we obviously also have the privilege of having mixed-race kids, and we are in a privileged situation of it not being an issue for us. We in our family, we are happy to talk about black issues, white issues, mixed-race issues. And to have a laugh about all of those the things black people do, the things white people do, and in between.
And so you bring to it a unique perspective, right? And you can have those conversations very comfortably because you're living it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in the interactions that you've been having, because I know you've been having questions, right, thrown at you, and I had a look at some of those questions. Some of them are pretty challenging.
I was asking questions. I was reading.
So as you're looking at those things and you're responding, and people are responding back to you, what are you seeing as the biggest challenges to changing?
I'm gonna go back a bit before I answer that.
Yeah.
Because I invited the world to ask us questions.
Yeah.
Because what I was seeing and what we were all seeing was there was just so much anger, so much hatred amongst people we knew. And I'm just like, didn't we just like boogie down the other day? Didn't we just?
Where did that come from? I had a couple of those moments too.
Didn't you just play football? Didn't we just? And so I couldn't understand why. How's it changed like that?
Probably hasn't changed, Siobhan. That's probably what was there all along.
Correct. So this is where I'm like, okay. So this is actually how you feel. Now I've had some other personal things happen to me recently, which smack of the issues behind Black Lives Matters. So where I may not say it's overt racism, it definitely has a connection of some form.
Right.
And so even with that incident, I'm like, just be honest. Just tell me what your issue is. Because if you don't talk to me, how am I supposed to understand? And if you don't talk it out, how can things ever be better? And I'm a believer in hearing each other's points of views. I just don't see any point in shouting. I
Yes.
don't see any point in getting so angry that the other person cannot hear you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're saying a good point; they can't hear you.
Yeah.
Delivery
Because-
is important.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't. You're so angry. It's not going to come across. And I've been in so many of those situations as well, and I know they don't work. So I just thought this subject is so important. It's so important that, you know what, I am willing to just talk to whoever you are, whether I know you or not. And do you know what, to be honest, the response has actually surprised me. I did not expect people to reciprocate. I didn't expect them to respond. And I've had private messages. I've had people who only know me through through social media send me private messages and say, and these are white people, and say, I don't know how to deal with this. I really want to, but I'm scared.
Yeah. Do you think it's scared of judgment from maybe their other counterparts, or scared of what
Yes.
exactly is what I like to find out?
I think
Yeah.
it's people scared of being in the same shoes as us, as black people. And
Because
people of
they've
colour.
By
spoken out.
association, you mean? So if they were to associate or be
Well,
on our side?
Here's a really good example. The anti-racist activist Jane Elliott. She's one of my favourites, and there's a really brilliant clip video of her saying, "Hands up." It was a white audience.
Yes.
Hands up. All of you will be happy to be treated
I
like
saw
a black
that video.
person, and nobody did.
Amazing.
So
Yeah,
that's
amazing.
what Aaron's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would there be a little bit of the fear of being labelled as a racist, why some people are not prepared to engage in the conversation?
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah, I feel like especially with the younger generation, they grow up with it all the time in their ear from parents and parents' parents, but they don't think that, you know, it would be them to say it.
Yeah.
And then when they do say it and someone brings them up on it, they're like, I would never, that's not me.
But they were conditioned,
yeah.
and they didn't even know that. They were
Yeah.
conditioned.
Yes.
Correct. And that's the thing.
It's quite sad.
The thing about it is, I appreciate that people don't know that they are conditioned.
Yes.
Yeah.
I accept that.
Yeah.
So I don't have any. There's no judgment really on you if you are saying, I didn't know. I get that.
Yeah.
Because you've never really been in. You never really had to think about
You
it.
haven't
Yes.
walked it. It's not
Yeah.
been a
Exactly.
reality, so
Yeah.
you can't be
Exactly.
expected to
Exactly.
understand it. It's a journey.
Exactly.
Also,
Yeah.
there's some people who think that racists only look one particular type of way, and not look physically, but if you're not shouting the N-word or wearing a Ku Klux Klan outfit, there are people who think that they're not racist,
Yeah.
where they might have micro-racisms
Yeah.
that they do daily and say without even realizing that that actually is in fact racist.
Micro-racisms, darling? Are you going to break it down?
So just little acts, like little acts of microaggression, like they might make a comment of like maybe, oh, something about your hair, and like you'll just feel like obligated to just go and touch your hair as if you're a pet or you're a dog or something like that. Whereas you hardly ever see the reverse. You hardly ever see a person of color, and I hate using that term, but you hardly ever see a person of color would just reach and stroke the hair of like a white person.
I'm going to challenge that.
Oh.
I'm going to challenge that term microaggression.
Yes.
Because I don't know if touching the hair is a microaggression. I know it's
Without permission.
No.
Mhm.
Yes. We even without permission. I mean, I've had many people do that to me. There are. There are some people maybe have some type of agenda, but generally it's a curiosity.
Sometimes.
In
You
some
can
people,
tell.
You
yeah,
can tell.
yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's
You can tell.
curiosity.
Because
Yeah.
a child or somebody might just be like, oh, it's so curly or it's so soft or so something. But you will have people who don't, it has happened to me, who don't know you from Adam, and I will just feel my head go like this from the back.
Whoa.
And that's just a random person in the lift.
Yeah.
When I had my dreadlocks done, and that's one of the reasons I cut my dreadlocks off.
Wow.
And they didn't say anything like, oh, can I touch your hair, or I
Just
just want to
pulled
touch
it.
your hair, or whatever. They just like that. and I look back and they just continued about their day.
And you cut your dreadlocks off.
Yes, yes, yeah. 'Cause it was a regular thing.
Is that why you cut it off?
Yes, it was a regular thing. I would be in the club. I was once in the restroom, and the girl came straight out of the stall and went straight in my hair.
Wow.
Straight in my hair, no conversation. I'm looking in the mirror
But
like,
her going into your hair on that occasion, was that an aggressive thing, a microaggression? Would you?
I
Or
would
was that
think.
curiosity?
No, there are people who have touched my hair, like when I've been at work in call center, but they have asked, they'd be like, oh, I've never seen dreadlocks, or can I touch your hair, or something. I don't find that as a microaggression.
Yeah.
But if you just feel entitled to just go
Yeah.
and do that without
like
saying
it's okay.
something. And even
Yeah.
when I turn around and acknowledge you, you don't say, oh, I'm sorry, or
Yeah,
whatever. Then
yeah.
I feel like, you know.
Yeah.
Personally, I wouldn't touch anybody's hair, black or white, without
Exactly.
their permission. But I get that on both sides. It's curiosity
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
some
there is
and
that.
microaggression on some levels. So it just depends.
And
Yeah.
but I suppose with this subject, when we start using those terms, sometimes I think they can be unfair because and then it prevents a lot of white people from responding because we use certain language and they go, oh, because they know.
But don't you
they
think
can
it's don't you
engage.
think that
They
it's
can-
because maybe sometimes there isn't an understanding? Because I'm finding vocabulary is expanding in so many ways, you know,
Yes.
and maybe sometimes there isn't really an understanding of these terminologies,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So that in itself, you know, can
Correct.
create
Correct.
barriers,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm not fully disagreeing. I'm just.
No, I get your point.
I'm just trying.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
just
not all.
understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm understanding it from their side.
And
Yeah,
that's why you're here, Siobhan, because you've got that, you know, a unique experience, I suppose, perhaps, on both sides of the fence. And that's why we're here. We're having a discussion, really an open and frank discussion about it. So,
Sorry.
no, so that's fine. You're
I
okay.
just wanted to go back to you, Aaron. So just kind of, you know, if we're in all, I mean, this is a topic that, you know, we could sit around this table every day
Yeah.
for how many weeks and go on about it, right? I'm just wondering, from the interactions that you're having, you know, from your perspective as well as a young person, mixed heritage, what are you seeing as solutions? What's the way forward? What are your suggestions? If you could wave a magic wand and deal with solutions, what would you tackle first, second, and third?
Football.
Football's good, you know. There's not much racism in football, but
Don't knock it.
don't knock football. Football's good.
What's helping?
Discussions with friends, even in small groups. I've called my friends out because a lot of them they didn't really speak on it, and I was curious because I was like, as your best friend, would you go that far to give money to the cause, to sign petitions, to, you know, speak up, share, even just posting something? And,
But you know, Aaron, I kind of like the fact that you have identified yourself first as their best friend.
yeah,
So you have claimed that relationship. And it does wonders for people.
Yeah.
If you speak to them like that, I think that's amazing, to be fair.
yeah.
Really commend you. And you sure they're going to be cool with you being on this podcast?
But he hasn't called
Your
me
rate
names.
is Sorry,
Well,
go ahead.
Aaron, please make sure that they listen. Facebook, Twitter,
be-
Instagram, UK on YouTube.
It'll be everywhere. It'll be everywhere.
Sorry, go ahead, finish off your...
No, yeah, just the being able to speak to your friends like that, because I know a lot of people they feel kind of timid when it comes to these situations, and even I would tell my white friends to say have that conversation because it's not just my problem, it's everyone's problem.
Yeah.
I share my relationship with you. You might not see it as a black and white thing, but it is.
Yeah.
But when someone else comes and looks at us together, they're like, oh, he's white, he's black.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Someone else will see it as that, but we don't see it as that. And that person has to have that understanding between our relationship. It's not colour, it's general, just human on human. You know, it's just a standard
We are
relationship.
people.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no boundaries.
Yeah.
I'm just as much of a person as the next man in the room. You know, I'm no different. So I feel
Yeah.
like that discussion has to be made because there's so many people out there that feel like that they're just different because they may you know, dress differently or speak differently, or he's from here, that you're from there. There's just no difference. And I feel like people need to know that we are normal.
Whilst we embrace the differences, there's no difference.
Obviously you have to embrace all, like, our culture has to be embraced, and your culture has to be embraced. It's an equal path, you know. When we scream for equality, we're not just screaming for us, we're screaming for everyone. You
I
know?
feel like I'm hugging you right now. See, that's because my son's this age group, and I feel like I'd say they go to the protests and things and raise their hands. My skin is not a crime and all, but if I were to bring them, like, no, mom, no.
Why?
I think maybe they're just afraid of the bright lights. Don't know. Not afraid of speaking up. I would like to hope, but maybe that's why I say good on you, man. Really appreciate you.
Listen, thank you so much for coming today. I wish we could continue, and it may well be that we come back at some point, you know, and deal with, you know, just explore this a little bit more, maybe as you continue your journey as well. But thank you so much, Aaron, for coming, and thank you, Siobhan, for coming.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Handles,
so
Siobhan,
much.
did you feel that there was anything before we wrap? If you need to
We
add.
We never touched the iceberg.
Okay. Well, tell us what
was the iceberg?
Because, see, I think the question that you probably didn't answer was the biggest challenges. Did you feel that, or was there something? Something.
It's such a massive subject.
It is. It really is. And obviously, for a podcast where you're looking for a 35 minutes kind of thing.
But if you have something that's burning,
So because we can edit in and we can still have 3 minutes.
We can edit it. So how about I say something like, okay,
What would you want to bring out, Siobhan? So we give us
if
a
we
way.
say, you know, if you say in a nutshell, from what you
Challenges
have
or
been, from what you
solutions.
have been, you know, from the discussions, what do you see as the biggest challenges, and what do you offer as some creative solutions? How about that?
Would that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that.
Do you want? Well, I think Aaron's kind of touched on that, haven't you?
He
Or your
did,
final
but-
words, if you want to give your final words.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
But then after that, you're going to introduce.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. That's okay.
Okay. All right. You good to go?
And then at the end, you have to say thank you for joining us. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, because we'll cut out what we said earlier on, right? Just to make it a bit
Yeah,
easier.
no, that's okay.
Okay, all right, okay. Listen, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to give you the last word, Siobhan. From what you have been seeing and hearing in the discussions you've been having, in a nutshell, just tell us, what would you see as the biggest challenges? And, you know, what would you offer as some creative solutions forward?
There are lots of challenges. One of them is holding to a view, holding to your view and not letting go of the past. When you hold on to hurts are there, they're done, we can't change them. We've got to acknowledge them though. They have to be acknowledged. But when you hold on to them, it doesn't give any space to move forward. So I finding a way to let go of those hurts is important. And I think one of those ways is to talk, as we are here, having discussions. If we don't understand each other, if we don't understand why I hurt, why you hurt, why anybody hurts on both sides, black and white, because black people can be racist, anybody can be racist. You know, it's not just white people. And so if we don't have this understanding of equality on both sides, you know, valuing each other, if we don't have that as a common ground, it's really hard to move forward. But one of the solutions for me is just having these conversations, understand each other, and then we'll know what to deal with. So if I understand that somebody's hurt is that deep, and I know that I need to give space for that thing to be unraveled before I can move forward. And there just needs to be an both parties or all parties need to agree to be in that place, that same place of, I want to understand you and you want to understand me, and then we can move forward. So that's what I'd say.
I feel like the difficulty is though is those people that hold on to that hurt don't want to let go of it. So when you approach them, or they approach you with something, and then you try to, like, not even aggressively counteract, but just, ease the conversation, they make it difficult because they're still shouting and shouting and shouting.
Yeah.
Be understanding for them, but also for them to understand you.
Yeah.
And it's just that's the biggest challenge with this situation is that just trying to express that to those who don't want to hear it, because
So
all they
that's
want
when
is
you-
a fight.
I guess that's when you know you have to walk away,
Yeah.
son.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to leave
When
it,
some
you know?
people-
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some
That's it.
people are very comfortable holding on to their hurt because the alternative is dealing with what
With
they
your
don't really
issues.
want to deal with.
Yeah.
So they'd rather hold on to the hurt than to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
go deeper into trying to sort it out.
Correct.
Yeah.
So-
And as long as they're like that, there's no way
No,
you can
there
Yeah.
is no win
No way.
situation.
No way.
Walk away in
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Love.
And maintain your mental health.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. And sometimes that is a solution, right?
Yes.
In some situations, that is a solution.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
one, it looks like I can't win this battle. I can't fight this
Yeah.
one. Let's just,
Yeah.
let's step
Agree
out.
to disagree.
Yeah.
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 But it's a long battle.
It
It's not
is.
going to be won
It's not.
overnight.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's
You
been
know,
going on for ages.
Yeah.
as we
So,
know.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's about, I have to ask myself, am I prepared to stay the course?
Mm.
'Cause
Yeah.
Because
it's
it's tiring.
it's very tiring, and it's very easy to just go, you know what, let somebody else deal with that.
Yeah.
So where I know that I have to step back from time to time,
Take a
and
pause.
it will look like I've just, living a normal life again. I know that I have made this part of my life, in terms of not being afraid. I'm not afraid to have these conversations with people, and the ones that go, I just, I'll say, why are you going? What is it? For me, it's about challenging. That's literally what happens. And they don't want me to talk about it.
Yeah.
They don't, and I want to get to the bottom of why.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Yeah.
The discomfort.
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
why.
But I don't want to
because-
go into the discomfort.
No.
Honestly, I've been
Nothing really
reading.
And
I've been
then-
just reading your
yeah.
Facebook stuff, and I just want to say I find it amazing. It was educational even for me. So well done.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, done.
Do you know, one more thing I wanted to say is one of the solutions is finding a way for people like us who want to see change. I believe the majority of people want this. The majority of people are not racist. But somehow the minority, the racists,
Are the loudest.
they the ones that are
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
the airplay.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think if we can somehow demonstrate that it is actually the majority that believe and agree and want to move forward, then you'll get more people coming, putting their head above the parapet and saying, "All right, I'm
one
with
of
you."
those. Yeah.
I'm with
Yeah.
you. Because
Absolutely.
there's so many people who are scared because they think they're the minority,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or they don't want to be seen to be,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
You're
coming.
welcome.
And listen, we wish you all the best as you continue with your interactions. You keep fighting the corner from fighting from your corner. We'll fight from our corner, and we'll all prevail together. What a wonderful discussion we've just had with Siobhan and Aaron. Really insightful.
Yeah.
And we are also really glad to have with us another guest with us today. Now, Pastor Owen Crane. Is a pastor locally here in Belfast, and he has also, I suppose who would say been on the journey. and we're so glad to have him today. So thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So let me start off with this, Pastor Owen. I have been stalking you
Go on.
on your.
Can I say, do you also know that she's a pastor?
I do.
Right. I'm excited to say that.
On your church website.
Yeah.
So I listened to a statement that you made, specifically on the 7th of June. And
The date.
You know more than I do.
details.
Receipts.
And I'm just going to quote a little bit
Okay.
from that, just pick out some bits, and then I'll come back to you. You said, "I am committed to do more than posting on social media whenever tragedy strikes. Racism is evil. It is an affront to the gospel of Jesus. This requires us to humble ourselves, educate ourselves, and begin to dismantle the racism that we see in our own hearts and in society. We need to hear the stories of what it means to be a person of colour in the UK. We need to open our hearts wide enough for those stories to move us and drive us to action. So, I guess my question is...
Did you write that?
Tell us, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And then the journey that has brought you to the point where you made that statement.
Well, I've been in Belfast 9 years now, so but grew up originally in the southeast of England, in a rural, idyllic. Have you ever seen The Vicar of Dibley? That's pretty much where I grew up. That area. So I've been thinking about this on the journey, and my high school was small. I had 500 pupils in my high school, but at that whole high school, there were 2 people of colour in the whole high school. Both in my year group, actually, both in my friendship group, bizarrely enough. So just not exposed to any kind of conversation about race at all. Then went to university in Manchester, obviously massive multicultural city, and then moved to 6 years in Manchester, 6 years in Bradford, both very multicultural cities. But I've always been one of those people that said I'm colourblind, I don't see colour, and that kind of whole narrative, and genuinely meant it. So genuinely had friends of a whole myriad of different colours, but never went any more than that. So never had any kind of conversations about race or any of those kind of issues until sort of coming here. And getting involved in other issues, so obviously coming to Northern Ireland, getting involved in sectarianism and looking at that and those kind of issues. And then I don't know, it's probably just my eyes have been open to it, but then seeing the police violence towards black people in the United States particularly. Because Stephen Lawrence, actually I was probably really young when Stephen and the whole kind of aftermath of Stephen Lawrence. Just really unaware of it, and then over recent years just started to become more aware of it. But if I'm totally honest, there were so many other things to do that were taking my time and getting busy with this. And then it was really with the incident with George Floyd in May. Was it May, April? May. And just and that moment of enough's enough. This is. And I don't know whether it was the pandemic or the fact that it was so blatant and so on camera that it was just this is just wrong, and this can't happen anymore. And my daughter, the year before, my daughter's 19, she had bought the book Why I Stopped Talking to White People About Race. On her shelf. So I thought, right, we're in the lockdown, I've got nothing else to do. I'll read this book, and it just wrecked me because I don't know if you've read it. She's brutal. She pulls no punches whatsoever. Slapped her out in the face so many times, and then having to have that moment where I need to confront that actually, I'm racist. But having to actually admit that, and then admit that, and some of the guys were talking earlier about some of the challenges is for a white person. One of the massive challenges is admitting that the good things in my life, like my education, my health, my socioeconomic background, are largely to do with the fact that I'm a white middle class male living in the United Kingdom. But that then almost takes away with but I'm a man and I have done these things for myself. And actually, largely I am a benefit of white privilege, and I'm a benefit of hundreds of years of systemic racism.
Just like I said with Natasha, break it down. White privilege.
But to admit that and actually say that out loud, that means actually then I haven't done everything in my life has not been created because I'm so awesome. It's actually. Yes, I have worked hard.
You're awesome right now.
And I have worked hard, and yes, I did. I took advantage of the opportunities that were given me, but it's acknowledging those opportunities were given to me because of my background, the colour, and then going on that journey of hearing stories. I read it was a Shane Claiborne, who's an activist in America, more on poverty, really, but talking a lot on race at the moment. And he says, we'll never make poverty history. Do you remember that, U2000? He says, we'll never make poverty history until we make it personal. And until you actually hear the story, So then when actually talking to my black friends and listening to people and talking to people like Raquel and various people in my church, and actually when you hear their personal stories of like walking down the street and being insulted just for walking down the street, there's something in, and I hope there's something in every follower of Jesus or every human being on the planet that just rages at like that's just not okay, and it's not okay in my town, my street, my community. That's not okay. But I will, like, let's be really honest, I am so new at this journey.
Yes.
I know so little about what it actually means to be black in Northern Ireland or in the UK. So I'm very much on a journey of learning and listening and trying to figure out what the heck we do about something so massive, so ingrained, and yet at the same point committed to somehow.
And how has this new journey affected those who know you best? Have they been able to see this journey in yourself?
The good, I guess the good thing is the people that know me best are like, right on, let's do it, let's do something. But social media is a wonderful thing because you have a platform to speak, but then people have a platform to speak back to you.
Yes.
And I'll say largely people have been positive and like thank you, or tell me where to start, give me some resources. So we put up on that site like recommended films to watch, or books to read, or podcasts to listen to, or people to follow.
Of course, you're going to mention UK.
Of course, I'm going to mention this, of course. But also, there was like genuine pushback of I don't understand. Help me understand. There was that, but then there was it's so interesting, that book. The lady Renee goes through kind of white defense tactics, like deflection and attack and all this.
What about black and black crime?
That's it. Oh yes, all of it. And it's funny, these messages coming through on my social media, and I'm like, yes, that's exactly what she said. And another one, I'm like, great. So that's been such an interesting journey to help people navigate that journey and talk to them about it and have those kind of discussions with people. So, and like I was saying to you earlier, like I've lost so many followers on Instagram because people don't want me to talk about it. But you're like, well, I can't in all conscience be a follower of Jesus and be a pastor of a church community and not talk about, like, how can you not talk about this? It is like, all lives matter is the classic one, isn't it? What about people messaging me, all lives matter? I'm like, yeah, but your house isn't on fire. So
that's a classic analogy, isn't it?
Oh, it's like, and the guy, like, particularly for Jesus followers, it winds me up because we talk about the story of the 99 and the one, and Jesus left the 99 to go and get one, and I'm like, and then there's a great cartoon, I don't know if you've seen it, of all the 99 sheep holding up a sign saying all lives matter.
Amazing.
You said something that you had to kind of confront the fact that you had kind of gone through life and some of the things that you've achieved, and you said it's not because I'm so awesome. I like to flip that whole thing on its head, because I think that the issue is that somebody listening being told that what you have achieved, it's because of white privilege. I'm very clear that, look, I'm not in any way seeking to detract from the fact that you have worked, you've clawed your way up, right? Whatever your background was, whatever you experienced in life. And the way that I kind of like to look at it is, look, it's not so much that you've necessarily been given advantages, but you haven't had obstacles.
Yes.
And your obstacles because of the colour of your skin.
Yes.
That's
exactly. You have other obstacles.
Because there are many privileged black people. We have a lot of privilege.
The colour of your skin hasn't also been an obstacle. So you've been able to walk in some respects in a way straight that maybe a black person has had to dodge and climb and so it's really just understanding that, look, we're in this together. This thing has been going for a long time. It is no one person's
See,
fault.
she's preaching now.
And that truly, if all lives matter, then, like you said, that story of the one sheep that needs help right now, that life should matter, right? So I can imagine, you said that you've lost followers on, and I guess this is what we have to kind of expect as we go on this journey. Not everybody's going to want to go on it with you, right? So thank you for staying the course.
Well, I'm so
We're
new.
praying for you.
Yeah, thank you.
So having now embarked on this journey, and I know you say it's still very early stages, and you know you talked about the need to hear stories and experiences, and you've been hearing some of that. What strikes you as the most important messages to communicate to white people who don't get it?
I'd like to. I think I probably said it in that statement. I think your starting posture has to be, I don't know. Like I cannot know what it means to be black in this country because I'm not. So I think if we
and black people don't expect you to know.
No, but I think white people freak out around that issue. Yeah. And I don't think anybody in society likes to admit that they don't know. We like to have this air of like, I know, of course I know all things. It's like, no, you don't know. And if you can admit that you don't know and admit that somebody else has a different journey to you, and I think immediately you can put yourself in a position to just to listen. And I think that's the most important thing, because you can, you know, particularly when it's social media and things coming out of the States, you can get twisted and you can argue and you go, but what about this, and he just did that, and all this kind of nonsense that goes around it. But actually, when I'm sitting opposite somebody and I'm looking them in the eye and I'm hearing them tell their story of like, this is what it's like to me, it's really, really hard to argue with that. But I think that's difficult, because to do that, you have to humble yourself. You have to admit that you don't know, and you have to put yourself in a position. I think white people have a problem with this: is they know they're going to be uncomfortable, and I think they're terrified. We are, like, white people are terrified of being called racist, terrified. So I think if you putting themselves in that position, it exposes that possibility for them. And I think if we can help white people get over that, get over themselves, and somehow create a space for conversation, I think that's probably going to be the most helpful thing to do. If we can somehow facilitate conversation. So many white people I know don't know anybody who looks any different to them, or never encounters anybody that looks any different to them.
When you're done.
No, I like not even, I know white people that don't even know anybody in a different socioeconomic background to them, let alone a different like skin colour to them, or any kind of experience. So if we can somehow create opportunities and avenues for that, I think that would be phenomenally helpful.
I'm just going to throw this light little episode in there. When I first started going out with my husband, who is from Northern Ireland, I met his grandfather. It was probably the only time that I met him. And he was actually ailing and in bed. And I went to the house and he said, "Oh, this is the first time I've ever seen someone like you." And I said to him, "Great. So now you get even a hug and a kiss as well." And he didn't know what to do with himself when I reached over and hugged and kissed him. But you know,
that's what conquers everything. You didn't take a different approach and got all offended.
But there was, he was in his 70s, 80s, and he had never met a black person in his life.
I know we're coming to the end. I just want to say in defense, I suppose black people were not taking all the credit for doing everything right. I know that there's a lot of black people out there who, and because we're talking about race now, perhaps sometimes we are guilty of using the race card in situations that are potentially not racist situations. And perhaps that's why maybe white people are terrified that no matter what they do, it might be interpreted as being racist. So as black people too, we've got to have some responsibility to make sure that we understand what it is that is actually racism. We have to take accountability too. So that's just my view.
Well, I think also there's a bunch of different definitions going on in terms of what racism actually is. And I do know that recently, I think it's the Webster's, don't quote me, but recently updated their definition of racism. But this is a definition that has been being used for at least the past 5 to 8 years or so, that racism is a structural system that has been set in place to maintain white superiority or white privilege at the disadvantage of black and people of color. So it's not just calling somebody the N-word or, or anything like that, or just being prejudiced or stereotyping people. It's having structures in place that maintain certain people at the top, white people at the top, and everybody else at the bottom. So that is why some people say that black people can't be racist, because they don't control the structures of society. They're not the head of the legal system. They're not the heads of the educational system. They're not in charge of the police. All these systems, and primarily we could probably see that more so in the U.S., where since Jim Crow and things like that, you can see the structures that are put in place to maintain the status quo. So it's not just saying the N-word or just saying, I don't like your skin, or you go back to your country, or things like that. It's making it legal and right to prevent you from advancing socially, economically, educationally, etc.
Agreed, 100%. But just in terms of our daily interactions with people, we have got to take responsibility, all of us, one way or the other, in fostering the right relationships.
Yeah,
good point.
Yeah, because there's the issue of unconscious bias and the issue of prejudices, and for all of us, right, regardless of where you're from and your background, we all have on a certain level unconscious bias.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's obviously why we just don't want to today to paint a one-sided picture, obviously. So
I'll paint a one-sided picture though.
That's okay.
There is yes, I totally hear everything you say, but to be white in this country, you have to acknowledge there are certain benefits and to be non-white of whatever ethnicity that is, there are going to be, as you said, obstacles in people's paths. And I think acknowledging that, if we can just get white people to acknowledge that one thing, I think that will go a long way to helping us.
And there are people on both sides who use the word racism, but it's not really a racist thing. Yeah, because some people are xenophobic and call it racism when it's xenophobia, and it's not really racism, or somebody's being prejudiced or a bigot and it's not really racism. So I think sometimes people don't know how to describe a situation, and they just throw, oh, you're being a racist out there. So
okay. And I think with that in mind, there's a lot of work to be done at the grassroots level with children. To help children to understand what it means to be racist. I mean, like, we have that issue as a school teacher with children coming in saying, he's bullying me, when the person has just said, I don't want to play with you today. It's, just
that's our bullying podcast.
Getting into the details of what it really means.
Yeah.
Listen, Pastor Owen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Today.
It's a real privilege.
Thank you for just being so open. And we hope that this is the start of many conversations in our various circles, and that this will help in one way or the other to move things forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck on your journey.
Thank you.
And thank you to our audience. We're grateful that you joined us today, and we're just going to ask you to, as they say, follow, like, subscribe, and all of that.
And tell a friend.
Our various handles, so you can catch us on Facebook. It's UK on Mute. On Twitter, it's UK on Mute. On Instagram, it's UK on Mute. On YouTube, it's
UK on Mute.
And by email, you can contact us at
ukonmute@gmail.com.
Until next time.
Thank you. Bye.